Hi, I'm Mona. I'm 26. Let me ask you something. Have you ever listened to someone speak English and thought, why do they sound so strong, so clear, and so calm? Maybe their grammar was not perfect. Maybe their accent was not native. Maybe they did not use difficult words, and still people listened. People respected them. People believed them. Why? Because they sounded like a leader. Now, when I say leader, I do not mean only a CEO, a manager, or a famous speaker standing on a big stage. I mean something wider and more human than that. A leader is someone who speaks with clarity, someone who stays calm, someone who gives direction, someone who makes other people feel safe, focused, and respected, someone whose words have weight. Many English learners want this. They do not only want to understand English. They do not only want to pass a test. They do not only want to survive a conversation. They want to sound confident. They want to speak clearly in meetings. They want to answer without panic. They want to explain ideas in a strong, simple way. They want people to listen. Maybe you want that too. But perhaps right now, when you speak English, your voice feels smaller than your thoughts. Maybe your ideas are good, but your sentences come out weak. Maybe you know what you mean, but your message gets lost. Maybe you speak too fast because you feel nervous. Maybe you speak too softly because you are afraid of making mistakes. Maybe you use too many extra words because silence feels uncomfortable. Maybe you start well, then lose direction in the middle. If that is happening, please hear this clearly. The problem is not that you are not smart enough. The problem is not that leadership English belongs only to native speakers. The problem is not that you need huge words, a perfect accent, or a dramatic personality. Most of the time, sounding like a leader in English comes from something much simpler. It comes from clear thinking, calm delivery, useful sentence patterns, and repeated speaking practice. Today, I want to show you how that change can begin. I want to tell you a story about the first time I realized that good English and leadership English are not exactly the same thing. I also want to teach you practical skills. You will learn what makes speech sound strong, what makes speech sound weak, how to choose better words, how to structure your ideas, and how to stay calm even when you feel pressure. This lesson is not about becoming fake. It is not about sounding arrogant. It is not about pretending to be someone else. It is about learning how to let your real ideas come out with more strength, more clarity, and more presence. First, I will tell you a personal story about a moment when I realized I did not sound as strong as I wanted in English. Then I will explain what speaking like a leader really means. After that, I will teach you the habits, phrases, and speaking patterns that create a more confident and professional voice. Then we will do a guided practice together. Finally, I will give you a simple action plan so you can start building leadership English step by step. I will use simple English, practical examples, and real situations. Ready? Let's begin. A few years ago, I was in a group discussion. It was not a dramatic event. It was not a giant conference room with 10 important people in expensive suits. It was a normal professional conversation. Several people were discussing an issue, sharing ideas, and trying to decide what to do next. I was there, listening closely. I understood most of the discussion. I had ideas too. In fact, I had one idea that I thought was useful. It was simple, practical, and realistic. I wanted to say it. I knew it could help, so I spoke. But the moment my sentence left me, I felt something was wrong. The idea itself was fine. My English was not terrible, but the way I said it felt uncertain. I used too many soft phrases. I added too many extra words. My voice rose at the end like I was asking permission to exist. Instead of sounding clear, I sounded hesitant. Instead of sounding helpful, I sounded unsure, and then something interesting happened. A few minutes later, another person said almost the same idea. Not exactly the same words, but the same basic point. Yet when that person said it, the room reacted differently. People nodded, people listened. The suggestion sounded organized, calm, and credible. That moment stayed with me. I did not feel jealous. I felt curious. What was the difference? It was not intelligence. It was not grammar. It was not even vocabulary. It was the way the idea was presented. It was how clearly the message was organized. It was confidence. The second speaker sounded like someone people could follow. That was the day I started thinking more deeply about leadership in English. When many people hear the phrase "speak like a leader," they imagine a loud person, a very dominant person, someone with powerful energy, sharp eye contact, and strong body language. That can be one version of leadership, but it is not the whole picture. Speaking like a leader in English usually means something more practical. It means you sound clear. It means you sound calm. It means your message feels organized. It means people can follow your ideas. It means you do not sound lost inside your own sentence. It means you respect the listener's time. It means you sound responsible for your words. This is very important. Leadership speech is not mainly about sounding bigger. It is about sounding steadier. A leader does not always use the most advanced words. A leader often uses the clearest words. A leader does not always talk the most. A leader often says the most useful thing at the right moment. A leader does not always sound aggressive. A leader often sounds centered. That was a big lesson for me. I had thought strong English meant advanced English. But often, strong English means disciplined English, clear English, intentional English, English with direction. Before we build a stronger voice, we need to understand what often weakens it. Many English learners make these mistakes without realizing it. A. They speak too fast because they are nervous. B. They add too many extra words such as maybe, I guess, kind of, a little bit, or I'm not sure but. C. They apologize too much before sharing an idea. D. They start speaking before they know where the sentence is going. E. They use long, confusing sentences to sound smarter. F. They speak too softly because they are afraid of mistakes. G. They end clear statements with question-like intonation, which makes them sound uncertain. H. They over-explain simple points. I. They hide behind vague language instead of making a clear point. J. They confuse politeness with weakness. This last one matters a lot. You can be polite and still sound strong. You can be respectful and still sound direct. You do not need to become rude to sound like a leader. You need to become clear. The first thing I changed was not vocabulary. It was the pace. I noticed that when I felt nervous, I rushed. My sentences came out too quickly. When people speak too fast in a second language, several problems appear at once. Pronunciation becomes less clear. Grammar becomes less stable. The speaker loses control of the sentence. The listener feels less certain, and the speaker feels even more nervous because the whole experience becomes messy. So I started practicing a very simple skill. I spoke slower, not painfully slow, not unnaturally slow, just slower than my panic wanted. At first, this felt strange. Part of me worried that slower speech would make me sound less intelligent, but the opposite happened. When I slowed down, I sounded more thoughtful. And when I slowed down, my words became clearer. When I slowed down, I had more control. That control changed my presence. Leadership speech often feels calm because the speaker is not chasing the sentence. The speaker is guiding it. That is a beautiful difference. The second change was structure. Before, when I wanted to share an idea, I often spoke in a loose, emotional way. I would begin with one thought, then add another, then explain too much, then lose the center of the message. This is common for learners, especially when they are trying hard to sound natural. But strong communication needs shape, so I began using simple structures. For example, I started using patterns like this. First, here is the problem. Second, here is my suggestion. Finally, here is why it helps, or this I see two main points. The first point is, the second point is, or this my recommendation is simple. We should, because. These structures gave my speech a backbone. A backbone changes everything. Without structure, your ideas may still be good, but they feel weaker because they arrive in a scattered way. With structure, even a simple idea can sound strong. This was one of the most powerful changes in my English. I stopped trying to sound impressive sentence by sentence. I started trying to sound organized message by message. Let me tell you about a moment when I tested this idea in real life. I was in another discussion, and once again people were sharing opinions. This time, I prepared myself before speaking, not with a full script, just with a simple plan. I knew I wanted to say 3 things: what I saw, what I thought we should do, why it would help. That was all. So when the moment came, I said something like this: I think the main issue is communication. Right now, people are not getting the information early enough. My suggestion is to send a short update sooner, even if it is not complete yet. That would reduce confusion and help the team prepare. That was not a complicated answer, but it was clear. And for the first time, I felt the room receive my words differently, not because I used difficult English, because I had direction. That moment gave me confidence. Not false confidence. Real confidence. The kind that grows when you use a better method and see a better result. This may surprise some learners, but many strong speakers do not sound strong because their English is advanced. They sound strong because their English is efficient. They choose clean words. They avoid extra noise. They make one point at a time. They use short sentences when it matters. They leave space after important ideas. They do not bury the message under too many decorations. For example, compare these 2 ways of speaking. The first version sounds weak. I was kind of thinking maybe it could possibly be a good idea if we maybe tried to change the schedule a little bit, if that makes sense. The second version sounds stronger. I think we should adjust the schedule. It will make the process clearer. Which one sounds more like someone people can follow? The second one. Why? Because it is direct, because it is clear, because it respects the listener. That does not mean every sentence should be short and sharp, but it does mean this: when your message matters, clarity is more powerful than decoration. Now let's move into some language tools. These phrases can help you sound clearer and more professional in English. They are simple, but they carry leadership energy because they organize thought and create confidence. Phrases for giving your opinion. In my view, I think the key point is, my main concern is, from my perspective. The most practical option is, I would recommend, one thing we should focus on is, these phrases help you begin with direction. They tell people an organized idea is coming. Phrases for giving structure. There are two main points here. Second, the main issue is the next step is. Let me break that into two parts. I see this in 3 stages. The reason is simple. These phrases are powerful because they help the listener follow your thinking. Phrases for making recommendations. I suggest that I think we should, a better approach would be, the most effective option would be, we need to focus on, it would help if my recommendation is, these phrases sound responsible. They make your English feel active. Phrases for calm disagreement. I see your point, but I would look at it differently. I understand that view, however. That may be true, but I think the bigger issue is, I'm not sure I agree completely. I think there is another way to see this. A possible concern with that approach is, leadership English is not only about giving ideas, it is also about disagreeing without sounding emotional, defensive, or chaotic. Phrases for buying time without sounding weak. Let me think about that for a moment. That is an important question. Let me answer that clearly. There are a few ways to look at it. I want to be precise here. That is a useful point to raise. Many learners panic when they need time. Strong speakers do not always answer immediately. Sometimes they pause, organize their thoughts, and then speak clearly. That feels more confident, not less. Another important lesson I learned was the difference between soft and weak. You do not need a hard, aggressive personality to sound like a leader. You can sound warm, thoughtful, respectful, and still sound strong. For example, these 2 sentences are both polite. I just wanted to maybe say something, if that's okay. I'd like to add one point. The second sentence is still polite, but it has more presence. Here is another example. Sorry, this might be a bad idea, but maybe we could. I have a suggestion. Again, the second one sounds more grounded. Many learners lower their own voice before they even begin. They apologize for the idea before the listener has even heard it. That habit must change. You do not need to attack people with your words. You simply need to stop shrinking your own message. Now let's talk about tone and delivery. 2 people can say the same words and create 2 very different effects. Imagine this sentence. We need to clarify the plan. One speaker says it very fast with nervous energy and rising intonation. Another speaker says it steadily with a pause before clarify and a calm ending. The meaning is the same, the impact is not. This is why leadership English is not only vocabulary, it is the rhythm, it is timing, it is how you carry the sentence. A leader's voice often has 3 qualities: calm, control, completion. Calm means the voice does not sound rushed by fear. Control means the speaker sounds like they know where the sentence is going. Completion means the sentence lands clearly at the end instead of disappearing. That last quality is very important. Many learners start sentences clearly but let them fade at the end. The result is that the message feels unfinished. Practice finishing your sentence like you believe it deserves to be heard. I used to fear pauses. I thought pauses made me sound lost. But later, I realized something very important. A nervous pause and a thoughtful pause do not feel the same. A nervous pause feels like the speaker is drowning. A thoughtful pause feels like the speaker is choosing the next word carefully. Strong speakers use pauses well. They pause before an important point. They pause after an important point. They allow the sentence to breathe. This makes the message easier to understand and more powerful, so I started practicing pauses deliberately. Not too many, not dramatic, just enough. For example, I think the main issue is communication. Right now, people are working with different information. That small pause makes the sentence stronger. If I say it too quickly, it sounds less controlled. A pause gives weight. Of course, growth was not a straight line. There was one time when I almost returned to my old weak speaking habits. I was in a conversation with people who seemed more confident than me. They spoke quickly. They interrupted each other a little. The energy was fast, and I could feel my nervousness rising. I began one sentence, and for a moment I felt that old uncertainty again. My mind wanted to rush. My words wanted to become smaller. I wanted to hide inside vague language, but then I remembered a simple rule. Slow down, make one clear point, so I did. I took a breath and said, I think the priority should be the client's response time. If that improves, the rest becomes easier to manage. That was it, not a speech, not a performance, just one clear point. And it worked. That moment taught me another lesson. Speaking like a leader does not mean you never feel nervous. It means you know how to return to clarity when nervousness appears. There are also patterns strong speakers avoid. A. They do not fill every silence with extra words. B. They do not say 10 weak sentences when 2 strong sentences are enough. C. They do not hide the main point at the end of a long explanation. D. They do not sound unsure unless they truly are unsure. E. They do not overuse apologetic language. F. They do not confuse complexity with intelligence. G. They do not speak only to hear themselves speak. These habits matter because listeners respond to energy before they analyze every word. If your English feels scattered, uncertain, and crowded, people feel that. If your English feels steady, focused, and clean, people feel that too. Many learners think the answer is advanced vocabulary, but often advanced vocabulary is not the answer. In fact, if you use a difficult word awkwardly, your speech can sound less natural. Try this instead. Choose a simple, strong sentence. Instead of saying, I was contemplating the possibility of implementing a slightly more efficient communication procedure. Say, I think we need a clearer communication process. The second sentence is shorter, cleaner, and stronger. This is one of the secrets of professional speech. Simple language, used with confidence, often sounds more advanced than complicated language used with hesitation. If your goal is leadership English, build your power through clarity first. Later, you can add complexity when needed. Answering questions is another important skill. Many people sound weaker when they answer than when they prepare a speech, because real-time questions create pressure. A strong answer usually does 3 things. It acknowledges the question. It gives a clear point. It supports that point with a reason or example. For example, imagine someone asks, what should we focus on first? A weak answer might sound like this. I think maybe there are a lot of things, but I guess one thing could be communication, because sometimes that causes some issues, I think. A stronger answer could be, I would focus on communication first. If the team has clear information early, the rest of the work becomes easier. Notice the difference. The stronger answer is not more advanced, it is more disciplined. The first sentence matters. If your beginning is weak, you spend the rest of the answer trying to recover. So practice strong openings instead of, I'm not really sure, but maybe. Try, my first thought is. Instead of, this might not be right, but try, one useful approach would be. Instead of, I don't know if this makes sense. Try, the key point is. These small changes send a different signal. They tell the listener that you are entering the conversation with intention. Now let's make this practical. If you want to develop this kind of English, you need regular training. Here is a simple daily practice. A. Choose one topic. It can be a work topic, a simple opinion, a news point, a decision, or a daily situation. B. Speak for 1 minute using this pattern. The situation is. The main issue is. My view is, I suggest, listen to yourself, not to attack yourself, to observe. Did you sound rushed? Did you use too many weak words? Did your idea have structure? Did your sentence end clearly? D. Try again. The second version is usually stronger. This practice is powerful because it trains thinking and delivery together. If you do this regularly, your leadership English will grow. Even though this lesson is about English, body language also affects the sound of your speech. If your shoulders collapse, your voice often becomes smaller. If you avoid all eye contact, your words may sound less steady. If your breathing is shallow, your voice can tighten. So before speaking, do something simple. Sit or stand upright. Relax your shoulders. Take one calm breath. Then begin. This sounds basic, but it changes more than people think. A centered body supports a centered voice. You do not need dramatic gestures. You need physical steadiness. What about pressure? Meetings, interviews, presentations, difficult conversations. These are the moments when learners often lose clarity. In pressure situations, I use a simple internal rule. Do not chase the perfect sentence. Carry one clear idea. That rule helps me a lot. When pressure enters, many learners become mentally crowded. They want to sound smart, correct, natural, fluent, confident, and professional all at once. That is too much. Choose one target, one clear idea, then say it simply. After that, say the next one. This is how many strong speakers survive pressure. They do not try to control everything. They control the next useful sentence. There is also an emotional side to all of this. Many learners speak weakly not because their English is weak, but because their self-trust is weak. They do not believe their voice deserves space. They think every mistake will destroy their image. They believe confidence must come first. But often, confidence comes after repeated acts of clarity. Each time you say a clear sentence, you build evidence. Each time you stay calm under pressure, you build evidence. Each time you make one useful point in English, you build evidence. Over time, this evidence becomes self-trust. And self-trust changes the whole sound of your voice. Now let's practice together. Repeat after me. I have one clear point. The main issue is clarity. My recommendation is simple. We should focus on the next step. I see two priorities here. Let me explain that clearly. I understand your point, however. A better approach would be, that is my view, very good. Now let's build a short leadership answer together. Imagine someone asks, what should the team do next? You can say, the next step should be clearer communication. First, we need to confirm the timeline. Then we need to share it with everyone. That will reduce confusion and improve coordination. Let's try another. Someone asks, what is the main problem? You can say, the main problem is inconsistency. Right now, people are using different information. We need one clear process. Notice how these answers feel. They are not dramatic, they are not full of difficult words, but they sound organized and useful. That is the goal. Here are 5 habits that can change your English if you practice them regularly. A. Speak slower than your anxiety wants. B. Start with one clear point. C. Use simple structure. D. Remove weak extra words. E. Finish the sentence clearly. If you practice these 5 habits, your English will begin to sound more grounded. Sometimes the hardest part is not English itself. It is the room, the people, the pressure, the feeling that others are more confident than you. When that happens, remember this. You do not need to dominate the room. You do not need to become the loudest person. You do not need to perform power. You need to contribute one useful, clear thought. That is enough. Many respected speakers are not loud, they are steady. Many trusted speakers are not dramatic, they are precise. Many leadership voices are not aggressive, they are clear and calm. Let that free you. The biggest lesson I learned is this. Speaking like a leader in English is not about pretending to be a different person. It is about removing what weakens your message and strengthening what already matters. Your ideas, your clarity, your structure, your delivery, your pace, that is all. You do not need to become someone fake. You need to become more intentional with the English you already have. So, how do you speak English like a leader? Not by using the biggest words. Not by trying to impress everyone, not by talking without direction, not by becoming louder and louder. You do it by becoming clearer. You do it by slowing down. You do it by organizing your thoughts. You do it by making one point at a time. You do it by trusting simple, strong language. You do it by ending your sentence with conviction. You do it by practicing calm under pressure. And most of all, you do it by believing that your voice does not need permission to be clear. If you are learning English right now and you want to sound stronger, start small. Take one topic, make one clear point, say it slowly, say it simply, say it like it matters, because it does matter. Your English does not need to be perfect to carry leadership energy. It needs clarity. It needs presence. It needs structure. And those things can be trained. One sentence at a time. Thank you for listening.